Alright, we are on the next part, and we left off right here. But by the other wives, Uranus had much issue, at which Gay, being vexed and jealous of Uranus, approached him, so that they parted from each other. Nevertheless, Uranus returned to her, again by force whenever he thought proper, and having laid with her, again departed. He attempted also to kill the children whom he had by her, but Gay often defended herself with the assistance of auxiliary powers. But when Cronus arrived at man's estate, acting by the advice and with the assistance of Hermes Trismegistus, who was his secretary, he opposed himself to his father Uranus, that he might avenge the indignities which he had been offered to his mother. And to Cronus were born children, Persephone and Athena, the former of whom died a virgin. But by the advice of Athena and Hermes, Cronus made a scimitar and a spear of iron. Then Hermes addressed the allies of Cronus with magic words, and wrought in them a keen desire to make war against Uranus in behalf of Gay. And Cronus, having thus overcome Uranus in battle, drove him from his kingdom and succeeded him in the imperial power. In the battle was taken a well-beloved concubine of Uranus, who was pregnant, and Cronus bestowed her in marriage upon Dagon. And whilst she was with him, she was delivered of the child which she had conceived by Uranus, and called his name Damaros. Okay, so there's just a little bit more lore. Like I said, I don't know if this stuff is just like it's like an allegory or kind of like a personification of like the technologies and I guess like emotional ideas of like human aspects of life, like love, hate, war, betrayal. These are just like in part of like explaining a cosmogony in a human history, you also explain like the fundamental emotions, the fundamental technologies. That's just kind of what I'm excuse me. That's just kind of what I'm assuming from all of this. Other than the fact that this was like an old like empire, like an old literal empire. I mean, it could be either or in the case, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of like esoteric authors and stuff like that, like they say like this person is Thoth, and that this person actually did exist, and he actually did teach people, and that there's this war of the gods that happened that seems to be going on. And it's just like, do you separate these gods from like normal humans, or do you like just kind of keep it as just an allegory of human history? But then at this point, it's like this is talking so far into the past, so far beyond like the ancient history that we call ancient history, and like the what I like to call the edge of the Stone Age, right? So like the emerging neo-agrarian societies, or the emerging agrarian societies. That's kind of how I perceive it. So, let's see, where are we? So, there's also some names I really don't recognize. I don't know if this is like because he's trying to explain it using some Greek names, but it ultimately is like a type of Middle Eastern text, I guess, but not in like a Aramaic or Arabic, or I guess it's probably more so like the ancient Canaanite Phoenician language, and then on top of that, like some of the Akkadian scripture is like taken from all this, and then like kind of like you could tell it's kind of been Greco-Romanized with the suffix us. I think that I said that before, where it's denoting like the Roman like royal names and stuff like that. It's like Augustus or Julius. Like they always add this US at the end for like names typically. Because some of this stuff is, I think, in the old Babylonian text that they found, I think, not too long after they probably made this text, or maybe they did find it and they didn't translate it to its fullest content yet. But yeah, it's like kind of like the same story. You have this like mother goddess going to war with this like um I don't know, I guess these like younger gods or whatever. It's it's really interesting, but I mean, it's not so much confusing as it is just like kind of like, there's a lot of allegories of that story being taken, or not so much allegories, but it seems like they kind of source that story from like an older source, which is what's going on here. I mean, you have like a Phoenician author, right, talking about like something that's in Old Babylonian, which is like, I don't know, I guess historically 1,000 years before that empire, so to speak. And then, these authors came like only like I'd say like maybe 500 years after. Because then it's like, okay, how old are these, stories? And how old would this history go of this like mother goddess? But it's like we've never really. I don't think in history we don't really have like a queen, like a super emperor queen or an empress. You know what I mean? Like you have Sargon of Akkad, right? But you don't have like a super empress that like kind of like ruled over a vast land, right? Because they say that's like Tiamat, right? It's like a mother goddess, right? And they're only at like temples and whatnot, but like an actual like empress, like a female like ruler, like it's never. I don't think I've seen it in that time period, in those ancient times. So, just something to keep note of. Not that it's like, you know, not that like I'm implying something like, sexist or something like that, but it's more so the fact that like, you just pay attention to detail with that type of stuff. Okay, yeah. After these events, Cronus surrounded his habitation with a wall and founded Byblos, the first city of Phoenicia. Now, this is separate from Babylon, right? Let me double check this. Is Byblos separate from Babylon? I could be wrong. Byblos was an ancient Phoenician city located here. I'll pull it up over here. Ancient Phoenician city located on the coast of modern day Lebanon. Oh, okay. So this history is kind of gonna be close to the Turkish, or not Turkish. Excuse me. I guess the Ionian history, or more so the like Urartu, right? Because they have like a god king who was like he like was like a bull tamer, and he was like a lightning god or something like that. I think it's like Teshub, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if they'll say the same name, but this is pretty close to those Turkish lands, like those ancient lands in Turkey, because they say those are like the really older lands, because Göbekli Tepe is like over there in Turkey, so like some of the oldest civilization would be on like the foothills of those lands. Okay, so city of Phoenicia. Afterwards, Cronus, having conceived a suspicion of his own brother Atlas, by the advice of Hermes, threw him into a deep cavern in the earth and buried him. Dang, they can do that. So there must have been like a giant hole or something, and he just they have like a lot of advanced technology, so to speak, right? So he just kind of just destroyed that cave, and he's just stuck in there. Whether or not I don't know. He's talking about something else. Maybe I can translate. Maybe I can translate it, but it might give me It might give me a modern rendition like this. Like, I feel like this could be talking about something else. Like, maybe, like, I don't know. It could be like a. It could be the same exact translation, but I don't know. Again, I'm kind of skeptical of these translations sometimes, but I guess what it is I'm interested in like this Greek translation of a Phoenician person. You know what I mean? Because now we're seeing like maybe some of the history's not explained too deep. I don't know. Okay, so at this time, the descendants of the Dioscuri, having built some light and other more complete ships, put to sea. Being cast away over Mount Cassius, there consecrated a temple. This time, the descendants of the Dioscuri, having built some light and other more complete ships. Wait, so who's Dioscuri? Wait, did we read him? I don't know where it mentioned Dioscuri. It might have mentioned it way before. Oh, I already forgot. Darn. Well, I don't. You know what? Let me just let's ask. Let's see. Who is Dioscuri in Cosmogony. Did I spell that right? Cosmogony. Here we go. Children of Syracuse, the just and sometimes. Okay. Okay, so these are the people who first invented the ship. And they sailed off to. Where'd they go? Mexico? Alright, well. So they left Mount Cassius, which I tried actually looking up some like Google images of it, or like trying using the, you know how like when you go on Google Maps and you click on the little what is it called? The little human, little person icon, right? And then you just drag it over like, you know, a spot that has like the street view. So sometimes they have like a little spot or like a little viewpoint where it has like a little panorama shot of like the area. But they had nothing that was over in like Mount Cassius, where I tried looking this up because it said it was like Gebel Akra, right? Some mountain like that. So like I tried like throwing the little person right on any of those. I couldn't get any pictures of it. There was a couple shots from like super far away, but trying to get like some shots on like the mountain itself, you can see there is a trail like going up to it, or like a street, like kind of like side road winding up the hill. You can definitely see that. But at the top, you know, the top, it looks like there's a temple of some sort, but you can't really see like anything on it specifically, like whether like, you know, the structure is like an old structure or if it's like a new structure. They would just build like a new temple up there or whatnot, doing some construction. But you know, if they did do some construction on it, there's no pictures of it. So it's like, I don't know, that kind of interested me because I tried so hard. If anybody could send me like a shot of like, you know, that mountain, because I tried looking it up. Maybe I wasn't looking hard enough. Maybe I'll try looking on Google Maps instead, or like, I'll do like a Google search instead of like trying to like find Google Maps of it. I'll try that. Maybe I'll get better luck. Sometimes I don't just think about stuff in the moment. I think about it afterwards, like right now. So, but the auxiliary of Ilus, who is Cronus, were called Elohim. Like, okay, so Let me ask who these people are. Who are the hello? What is it? Did I spell it right? And his works as well. I think it told me they were like that word means like people of light. Does it mean something about the sun? There we go. Okay. Who is the supreme deity in this Phoenician pantheon? Elion. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. See, I remember this now. Yeah, it's like a... I think this is also mentioned in the Old Testament too, so it's like, yeah. This term, akin to the Hebrew Elohim, refers to the divine assembly. See, like, this is mentioned in Genesis in, like, the first, like, sentence. See, I asked it what it meant, what this meant, and it told me, like, something of the sun. So, okay, so... the allies of Cronus. Interesting. As it were, the allies of Cronus being so called after Cronus, and Cronus having a son with Sadidus, dispatched him with his own sword, because he held him in suspicion, and with his own hand deprived his child of life. Excuse me. In like manner, he cut off the head of his own daughter, so that all the gods were astonished at the disposition of Cronus. Damn. Well. Damn. But in the process of time, while Uranus was still in banishment, he sent his daughter Astarte, being a virgin, with two other of her sisters, Rhea and Dione, to cut off Cronus by treachery. But Cronus took the damsels and married them, notwithstanding they were his own sisters. When Uranus understood this, he sent Marmine and Hora with other auxiliaries to make war against Cronus, but Cronus gained the affections of these also, and detained them with himself. Moreover, the god Uranus devised Betulia, contriving stones that moved as having life. Stones that moved as having life. So was that like a robot or like a golem? That's interesting. This is like kind of like the Greek mythology, you know. I'll be honest though, I'm not too versed in the Greek mythology too much. I mean, I obviously know the names, but I don't know like the story or the bloodline specifically. I just know that there's like some relation to some of them. Like I know the names Gaia and like Zeus, and how there's a difference between there's the Titans and then the like Olympian gods, and I don't know. There's so many more stories like that around the world that like, you know, is this all mythology or is this something being kept as like history that's like just, you know, you're not supposed to talk about it anymore? But I don't understand. Okay, so and by Astarte, Cronus had 7 daughters called Titanides or Artemides. By Rhea he had 7 sons, the youngest of whom was consecrated from his birth. Also by Dione he had daughters. By Astarte again he had 2 other sons, Pothos and Eros. And Dagon, after he had found out bread corn and the plow, was called Zeus Atrorius, Arotrius, there you go, to Siddiq, who was called the Just, one of the Titanides, bare Asclepius, and to Cronus were born also Pareia, 3 sons, Cronus bearing the same name with his father, and Zeus, Belus, and Apollo. Interesting. Contemporary with these were Pontus and Typhon and Nereus, the father of Pontus. From Pontus descended Sidon, who by the excellence of her singing first invented the hymns of odes or praises, and Poseidon. Okay, so yeah, this is kind of like putting a kind of Greek perspective, I guess, onto all of this. So I guess this is what they. I don't know. Is this actually like Greek history, or is this? I can't really tell. I'm kind of like stumbled now, actually, because like I'm looking at this, but I mean you see like Zeus, Poseidon, right, and like all these names, but it's like I mean I guess there's more stories of them, but I don't know what to think of this. This is written by a Greco-Roman author, right? So about, right? What did the AI say? Let me see. Yeah, quoted by Eusebius. So these are just like taken from like past now, but I don't know. But to Damaris was born Melicarthus, who was also Heracles. Uranus then made war against Pontus, but afterwards, relinquishing the attack, he attached himself to Damaris when Damaris invaded Pontus. But Pontus put him to flight, and Damaris vowed a sacrifice for his escape. In the 32nd year of his power and reign, Ilus, who was Cronus, having laid an ambuscade for his father Uranus in a certain place situated in the middle of earth, when he had got him into his hands, dismembered him over against the fountains and rivers. There Uranus was consecrated, and his spirit was separated, and the blood of his parts flowed into the fountains and the water of the rivers in the place which was the scene of his transaction, is shewn even to this day. What the heck? I don't know. It's an interesting. It's an interesting like rendition of history. It's like I see all these like Roman names and stuff like that. So they named these things like Roman things, I think, but they didn't have the I guess the original names for them, maybe so. And so these older people try to like or these people in older times try to like associate these people with the gods that they knew of or they had names for, maybe. So it says, then our historian after some time, after some other things, goes on thus. But Astarte, called the greatest, and Damaris named Zeus, and Adotus, who is entitled King of Gods, reigned over the country by the consent of Cronus. And Astarte put on her head, as the mark of her sovereignty, a bull's head. and traveling about the habitable world, she found a star falling through the air, which she took up and consecrated in the holy island of Tyre. And the Phoenicians say that a star is the same as Aphrodite. Okay, so yeah, they're just I guess these people back then were trying to connect some of the Phoenician gods to the Greco-Roman pantheon and stuff like that. Okay, so moreover, Cronus, visiting the different regions of habitable world, gave to his daughter Athena the kingdom of Attica, and there happened a plague with a great mortality. Cronus offered up his only begotten son as a sacrifice to his father Uranus, and circumcised himself, and compelled his allies to do the same. And not long afterwards he consecrated after his death another of his sons called Muth, whom he had by Rhea. This Muth the Phoenicians esteemed the same as Death and Pluto. Well, what I wonder what prompted this guy to circumcise himself. It just says like he sacrificed his son, right? And then he circumcised himself. Like, what does that mean? And then told everyone to do the same in order to stop this plague from destroying everything. I don't know. I'm not really sure what it's implying right there. But I mean, if that comes from, I don't know. Is that really where circumcision comes from? It comes from that legend where a plague struck everything and people had to circumcise themselves? Is that really where it came from? And these are the ancient texts, man, and they have the... This is like, I guess, the oldest knowledge that was passed down. This Muth, right, whom he had by Rhea, this Muth the Phoenicians esteemed the same as Death and Pluto. After these things, Cronus gave the city of Byblus to the goddess Baltis, which is Dione, Berytus to Poseidon, and to the Caberi, who were husbandmen and fishermen. And they consecrated the remains of Pontus at Berytus. But before these things, the god Tautus, having portrayed Uranus, represented also the countenances of the gods Cronus and Dagon and the sacred characters of the elements. He contrived also for Cronus the ensign of his royal power, having 4 eyes in the parts before and in the parts behind, 2 of them closing as in sleep, and upon the shoulders 4 wings, 2 in the act of flying, and 2 reposing as at rest. And the symbol was that Cronus, whilst he slept, was watching, and reposed whilst he was awake. And in like manner, with respect to the wings, he was flying whilst he rested, yet rested while he flew. But for the other gods there were 2 wings only upon his shoulders, to imitate that they flew under control of Cronus. And there were also 2 wings upon the head, the one as a symbol of the intellectual part, the mind, and the other for the senses. Okay, so I guess that's some symbology of some sort. And Cronus, visiting the country of the south, gave all Egypt to the god Tautus, that it might be his kingdom. These, he says, the Caberi, the 7 sons of Siddiq, and their 8th brother Asclepius, first of all set down in the records in obedience to the commandments of the god Tautus. All these things the son of Fabion, the first hierophant of all among the Phoenicians, allegorized and mixed up with the occurrences and accidents of nature and the world, and delivered to the priests and prophets the superintendence of the mysteries, and they, perceiving the rage for these allegories increase, delivered them to their successors and to foreigners, of whom one was Sirius, the inventor of the three letters, the brother of Cana, who is called the first Phoenician. Dang. Okay. So let me ask a couple things real quick. Is Sirius supposed to be Osiris in the cosmology? Oh, I spelled it wrong. Cosmogony. So it says yes. Yeah, so okay, so yeah, so he is syncretism, where he attempts to find parallels and equivalents between the Phoenician deities and myths of other cultures, particularly Greek and Egyptian, while the details of Central Neothelian texts were fragmentary and filtered through Philo and later through Eusebius. The presence of figures like Osiris and Thoth clearly indicates an awareness and integration of Egyptian religious concepts in this Phoenician historical. So it's really important to find what types of things they're talking about in these things and what things they're not talking about. So for instance, they don't talk about Hathor, and they don't talk, so they talk about Menes, right? And they talk about Mysore and the first legitimate unifier of Egypt. I think they did mention that, so we'll have to pay attention to like what's mentioned in here, because there's very small things. I'm gonna finish this off, and then we're gonna start right here of the mystical sacrifice of the Phoenicians. We'll do that. So what I want to finish off here with is understanding like what paying attention to like what's being mentioned in these texts and what's not being mentioned in these texts, because what's not being mentioned in these texts is also very key, because if they don't talk about like so they have history of Egypt, right? We just saw a connection between like Egypt and the Phoenician lands, right? And not only that, but like also the Greeks with the Phoenician lands, right? So with the Egyptians, if they don't talk about the Great Pyramids, which are like the most like elephant in the room type of object that's out there in Egypt, talking about going in there, building it, or having a legend of it, how they explain it, or them going inside of it, right? It's really it's like a really key detail, because it tells us like how old this thing could possibly be. Because if they don't mention it, or if they mention that they can't get inside it, or there's no like mention of it, that doesn't tell me that it necessarily didn't exist, but it tells me that that superstructure was not emphasized because it wasn't utilized, so to speak, or revered as hard. If that kind of makes sense. Maybe that's not so much the case, because you have stuff like that. Then it's like, oh, well, why don't they mention like other structures in Phoenicia? And in this book they kind of do, like Mount Cassius and stuff like that. But I guess I'd have to do my research on my part for that. But like Egypt's kind of known for the Great Pyramid, so it's kind of like were the Great Pyramids known in that same time too? Or were they known about like the dynasties more so? So, just an interesting perspective to put into this when we're looking at this. So we'll continue on this sacrifice of the Phoenicians part in the next video.